With sweat covering his face in nervousness now he was standing in front of her door thinking that he said he won't come, but he ended up coming here. The door opened, Nanju came out. Kiyomi froze and overreacted as he wasn't ready for this. A sight of her damp skin in her sleepwear was something that he had never expected in his dreams. Nanju rasped, "I thought you said you weren't coming." Without knowing what to say, Kiyomi shouted in anger, "Of course you would catch a cold in those clothes." She asked, "Why are you mad at me?" Kiyomi walked into her home. Nanju clung back to her bed, replying, "I was sweating a lot and was about to change my clothes but the bell rang. When I opened up the next thing was you shouting at me." In worry and anxious tone Kiyomi said, "What would have happened if it wasn't me and someone else?" She replied, "Do you hate this idea?" Kiyomi expressed with a shocked, anxious face, "I mean, what if others see you like that?" Before he blurted out any further, Kiyomi grabs a hold on himself and says in his heart, "If Nanju didn't care then I didn't have anything to do about it." In worry and emphatic tone he replied, "Anyone would be surprised by seeing you like this, so please don't do it again." She agreed and said okay. Kiyomi asked, "Do your parents knew that you are sick?" She said, "No, if I tell them then they would rush over. I didn't want to ruin their trip." He smiled upon hearing her words and said in his heart she truly cared about her family. As he was looking and thinking about her, a loud growl echoed from Nanju's stomach, making her cheeks blush, and embarrassed with blushing eyes she looked at Kiyomi. He asked, "Have you eaten anything?" She answered, "I ate pudding in the morning." Looking at Nanju, Kiyomi said, "I'm going to buy an instant porridge for you," which sparkled her eyes with excitement, making her say, "Yay." He prepared instant porridge with a balanced meal and gave it to Nanju, saying, "Here you go." Like a lover, Nanju requested Kiyomi to feed me and opened her mouth. Kiyomi exasperated little bit for a moment, and fulfilled Nanju's request by feeding her and asked, "Is it right or too hot for you?" She cheerfully said, "It's fine and good." When feeding her, he looked at Nanju and said, "You seem better now, can't you eat by yourself?" In a little bit angrier and cheerful tone Nanju said, "Oh come on, I'm still sick," and requested to feed one more time. Kiyomi's hand slipped and a little bit of porridge fell on her chest. She looked at the fallen porridge on her chest. Kiyomi overreacted and apologized for the incident. She replied, "Don't worry, it's my fault to make you hurry up." With smile and a naughty face she got close to Kiyomi and requested him, "Would you clean it up for me, Mr. Cleaning Addict?" Kiyomi flustered and blushed by her request. She laughed off saying, "I'm joking, give me the tissue, I will clean it up by myself." Kiyomi was about to leave, but Nanju asked him to wait, and asked, "As a cleaning addict, don't you hate this kind of stuff? And if I did anything mean or offended you then I'm sorry." Kiyomi looked at her and expressed, "It depends on the situation. I can't handle things like being touched with dirty hands, people unnecessarily touching me, and the worst thing is using my desk without my permission." Nanju understood and apologized. Kiyomi said, "Even his friend Honda-kun understood it after I gave his game back to him. And I said it yesterday, if you don't like anything then tell me, it's okay to say and don't worry about it." Nanju's eyes lightened up. She looked at Kiyomi and said, "Then can we do it here?" Kiyomi said, "Why are you still hooked on that?" Finishing her meal Nanju went back to sleep. Kiyomi was about to leave but found himself unable to do so. He turned around, looked at Nanju, and she was holding his shirt in her sleep. Kiyomi tried to make her let go but was stopped by a past memory flickered in his mind, which made him like this. It started back in elementary school with a useless comment with a girl standing next to me saying no, she didn't want to hold hands with me, "You look gross and don't come close to me." At that moment Kiyomi understood that some people hate the feeling of being touched. Since that day I learned to keep physical distance from others, even though I feel disgusted and find it uncomfortable when someone touches me. Looking back at his past he found that he and the girl feel the same way. But Nanju is different. Although she started to hang out with me as my girlfriend, Kiyomi thought, what would she do if I let her do that? Even though these steps are small they would help me to overcome my past experience. He heard a voice of Nanju changing her side in sleep. Without knowing, her chest is a little bit exposed in sleepwear. Looking at her, Kiyomi blushed and froze for a moment in embarrassment. Thinking deep in his heart, I want to touch and hold her hand, saying in the heart, after all I'm a man and that's why I play sparkling memories. And I don't know how long I'm with Nanju, but if things continue like this then maybe I won't be long with her. Kiyomi looked at Nanju, swallowed his fear, and made a move towards her to cross this bridge of his past with closed eyes, cold sweat running from his face. He finally made small progress by touching Nanju's hand with his finger. Opening his blushing eyes, he looked at his finger, saying in his heart, "It's been so long since I touch anyone. Her skin feels warm and soft." This small leap is the first big step in his journey of 10,000 miles. Blushing by his first step in life, Kiyomi turned red as his gaze got fixed on Nanju and daydream about the day when he can easily touch her. Without knowing that it going to happen much sooner than he expected it, in her sleep Nanju stretched her hand towards Kiyomi, making him startle out. Without knowing how, she instantly pulls Kiyomi. He was surprised just what happened. The next thing he knows was the warmth embrace of Nanju's arms and melons on his face, making him astonished. He screamed in disbelief on how things moved out. Nanju was about to wake by his scream, asking him in her half-sleep, "Did you say something?" Kiyomi struggled and managed to slip out from Nanju's warmth before she wakes up. After escape, he sighed a relief. Thinking about what just happened made his face red. His mind was overloaded by the images of Nanju's embrace, making him believe this is too soon for him. The night appeared. Waking up from her sleep, Nanju apologized to Kiyomi for keeping him stayed so late with her. She became worried and asked, "Will you make it on time?" He assured her that he could easily catch the last train, and asked her, "Would you be alright by yourself?" She said, "Yes, my fever is gone already and I will be back to school tomorrow." Kiyomi sighed relief in happiness and was about to head out when Nanju called him. He turned around. She replied, "Thank you for what you did today for me. When my parents are out, I don't know what to do at home alone anymore. But I'm glad you showed up in my troubled time." With a smile and blushing in happiness, Nanju said, "See you tomorrow." Kiyomi replied, "I'm looking forward to seeing you at school tomorrow." The next day at school, Nanju was bursting out with positive energy after a good night nap. A big smile was formed on her face. She began her search for Kiyomi to thank him for yesterday, as she is thinking deep in her heart that he is kind. "At first I asked him by force to be my boyfriend, but I'm happy with the choice I made in past and I wish that he felt in the same way towards me." Nanju's search was over as she found Kiyomi in happy and cheerful tone. Before she can call him, another girl called her name, making Nanju astonished and surprised. The girl went close to Kiyomi and apologized for calling him late at night. She looked close at his face and said in cheerful, energetic tone, "Are you feeling sleepy?" She expressed further, saying it was fun and we should do it some other time also. Nanju once again stands stiff like a statue in confusion, thinking, who is this black-haired and neat girl? Seeing Kiyomi with another girl really did a number of things on Nanju's emotions. After hearing what the girl said, a wave of insecurities and doubt ran on Nanju, making her think about what they did yesterday. She imagined the worst-case scenario, making herself believe that did they do it. Nanju tried to calm down by reassuring herself by saying deep in her heart there was no way a cleaning addict like him could do that. However, seeing them together sparked an old memory where Kiyomi said something to her in the past, with a chibi face, making her concerned and anxious that he said he would do that. Additionally, this girl perfectly fits the bill of being Kiyomi's ideal girlfriend. With all of these unexpected events making one thing clear to Nanju. Deep in her heart she thought with doubt, "It can't be, did I got dumped by Kiyomi?" She was lost in her thoughts. Suddenly she heard Kiyomi's voice calling her. Nanju immediately turned around and found Kiyomi standing behind her. Looking at her, he asked, "Are you going to the class?" Nanju was speechless as she wasn't ready for this encounter. She lost her courage as she couldn't make herself look and talk to him. Kiyomi asked, "Are you feeling okay or ill? Please don't overwork yourself." Nanju replied, "You are right, I'm going to the infirmary," saying to him, "Please tell this to the teacher also." Kiyomi stood in shock, thinking just what happened to her. Going to the infirmary, Nanju thought deep in her heart, in the past I had been cheated on and dumped by others a lot of times. This is also like those past times, but why do I feel like this? Kiyomi called and told her to wait. Showing concern for Nanju, he moved close and asked, "Are you okay really? Yesterday I was worried sick about you." Kiyomi restrained himself as he was about to touch her arm. Nanju looked at Kiyomi and asked, "Where did you go yesterday after visiting me?" He replied, "I went straight to the home." Listening to his answer, Nanju thought in her heart, "Now he is lying to me." She turned around in anger, saying, "Just go to the class. I'm visiting the infirmary for rest." Before Kiyomi could say anything, Nanju apologized with tears in her eyes and a weeping voice. She said, "Go, I don't want to talk to you right now. In the classroom, Kiyomi's gaze is fixed on Nanju-san. Looking at her, he thought she came to class after the second period, but why she isn't talking to me or replying to my messages? He began to doubt himself about what he did to offend her this much. As he was thinking, an image of Nanju's warmth embrace popped into his mind, which he shook off. Deep in his heart, he thought from the beginning it was more like a game of pretending lovers, and maybe Nanju is tired and had lost interest in me. And if this hunch is true, then things would go back how they were in the past. The class was over. Nanju quickly went out. Before Kiyomi concluded things, he tried to get close to her, calling her to wait, but she went like a gushing wind. Kiyomi felt down in the dumps thanks to Nanju's cold shoulder. Honda and his girlfriend were also watching the drama between them. On the rooftop, Honda was enjoying the day as his girlfriend Mayu-san prepared a special bento lunch for him. The cherry on the cake, she was feeding Honda in front of Kiyomi-kun. He felt like a third wheel after watching them, and asked from Honda, "Can I go back if I'm interrupting you guys?" But Honda said, "No, I want you to come eat with us." Kiyomi's face became pale with a lifeless gaze as he looked toward Mayu-san. When she replied, "You are interrupting us." In anger and pout, she hugged Honda and said in a cheerful tone, "I want to be alone with my hubby since we only get time to eat lunch together." Thanks to her, Kiyomi's heart was about to break in the million pieces. But Honda-kun cleared up things and said, "Mayu was worried about you after what happened to you today. Also, thanks for helping us yesterday in the limited Monster Girls event. We can't beat that event alone." They said, "Let's add Nanju-2 to our game list." Feeling dejected and lonely, Kiyomi replied to them that Nanju-san didn't play games. Now in the first place, she isn't even talking to me. Looking Kiyomi at such a miserable state, Mayu asked, "You visited her yesterday, right?" Kiyomi said yes. "And why she was acting weird today as we saw her?" Honda-kun asked, "Did something happen between you two?" Kiyomi replied, "I don't know. She lives in a different world than me." Looking at heartbroken Kiyomi, Mayu only felt pity for him. The things have already went too far. Kiyomi had decided if Nanju still acts in that weird way, then he had no choice but to break up with her. Mayu and Honda looked at Kiyomi for a moment. Looking at him, she said something that shocked Kiyomi. She asked, "This keychain on your bag is a gift from Nanju, right? But you know I have a keychain of Madoka and I'm a big fan of your Rurutan keychain." She went close, made her move, saying, "Switch with me." She leapt forward like a tiger close to Kiyomi's bag and take the keychain from his bag, saying, "You don't need it anymore if you are going to break up with Nanju-san, right?" Kiyomi thought for a moment she was right about this, but a memory of Nanju-san flickered in his mind. Kiyomi rushed forward and grabbed Tawa-san's hands to say no. She was amazed to see him acting like this. After getting his keychain back, Kiyomi turned red, saying, "Even if things turned out like that, this is something precious to me." Tawa backed off by saying, "Okay, that's it." Kiyomi asked what was that. Honda butted in and said to Kiyomi, "You like Nanju-san, don't you?" Kiyomi replied by denying it, but stopped as he didn't know what to say or how to express himself. Without any second thought, he said, "I like Nanju-san." Honda was enjoying this day more than anyone else had by saying, "That's right, isn't it, my friend? Why don't you go and have a proper talk with her?" Honda's words struck like a motivational video to Kiyomi, making him man up. Deep in his heart he said, "Honda is right, I have to go and talk to her." He left in a hurry. His friends cheered for him by saying, "Good luck with that." Kiyomi descended from the rooftop searching for Nanju, saying deep in his heart, "I don't want things like they were in the past. Even if she lost interest in me, and if there's no other way around but to end it, then first I want to hear her answer and what she feels about me." That's what he thought. Kiyomi was exhausted from all this running. He wasn't able to find Nanju anywhere. He searched everywhere without leaving any stone of school unturned, but she wasn't found anywhere. Kiyomi thought maybe she had gone home earlier because she wasn't feeling well. Ending his search for Nanju, Kiyomi remembered that he had left his bag on the rooftop, without knowing what was waiting for him. He heads to the rooftop and finds Nanju and Mayu-san there. In wonder, Kiyomi thinks about what are they doing together. Facing Mayu-san, Nanju asks her, "Are you and Kiyomi-kun dating each other? You have black hair and you are also neat and in every way an ideal girl that Kiyomi likes. But I won't give up, and today I haven't approached him, but with all of this, I can't stop thinking about him." With an emphatic tone she said, "Because he is someone precious to me." Instead of answering Nanju's request, Mayu said, "Everything is fine now, Kiyomi-kun. Listening to his name, Nanju-san turned and freaked out, asking Kiyomi, "What are you doing here?" Facing Kiyomi directly with blushing cheeks and an emphatic tone, she said, "It's not like what you think. I'm not here to mess up your relationship." Kiyomi replied that Nanju Mayu-san is Honda-kun girlfriend. Hearing about this revelation, Nanju was shocked and dumbstruck, thinking, "How? What did you just say?" She asked, "But didn't you say that you stay late at night?" Kiyomi cleared up his confusion and said it was an online game that all three of us were playing together. Honda replied, "We were thinking about doing some naughty stuff, but Nanju suddenly showed out of nowhere, which scared me." Mayu couldn't control herself anymore, even though Kiyomi and Nanju were still standing there, but she continued to do naughty stuff to Honda without minding them, making Kiyomi think that she isn't neat at all. Looking at Honda and Mayu, Nanju stand in silence, thinking about the situation at hand. She turned around by laughing, hiding her embarrassment, saying, "Oh, it was a misunderstanding. I'm such an idiot." She apologized to Kiyomi. He looked at Nanju and said, "When we agreed on normal romance, I thought every day that someday you would lose interest in me. Now it's not like that anymore, so I will once again say it. Nanju-san, please go out with me." Nanju once again laughed off, saying, "What are you saying? It's obvious, isn't it? If you don't want to break with a chibi face and laugh like an idiot," she said, "did you want to do it?" Kiyomi replied, "Did I say any of that?" Mayu looked at them with a smile and a cheerful tone. She said, "Why not 4 of us do that?" Nanju shouted and said, "No, 4 people would be too much to handle." Mayu laughed by saying, "I was joking. I said why not 4 of us play together another time." Kiyomi replied that she isn't interested in the games. Kiyomi became surprised when Nanju replied, "Why not? I haven't played games before, so will you teach me, Kiyomi-kun?" He said, "Yes, why not, let's do it." The next day at outside the station, Kiyomi was waiting for Honda and his friends, as today is the day they promised to play video games together, like we had done in the past. However, this time something was different today. Thinking deep in his thoughts, he heard a voice calling him. Kiyomi turned around and heard Nanju-san. She apologized for making him wait, and today she is going to play with us. Nanju reached closer to Kiyomi and said, "You sure came early." Looking at her, he was charmed by Nanju's beauty. With beautiful radiant skin, she looked at him and asked, "Did something is wrong?" Kiyomi freaked out and said no. Nanju said, "Then let's go." Without any second thought, he said, "Yes, let's go." Walking with her, Kiyomi thinks in mind, "I never thought that I could get such a beautiful girlfriend. Just walking with her filled my heart with happiness." Nanju asks how's Honda-kun house is. Today she is so beautiful that Kiyomi can't look at her straight and thinks that he is being captivated by her beauty. They walked and reached close to the apartments where Honda lives. Nanju was amazed as she can't believe that Honda lived in such a luxurious place. Nanju became even more surprised when Kiyomi told her that our hentai protagonist lives alone in the apartment, which shocked her. Listening to Kiyomi, Nanju thought in her mind, just who is Honda? They went close and Honda welcomed them with his girlfriend Mayu. They replied and said, "We are here." Mayu looked at Kiyomi and asked in surprise, "You are not wearing a uniform today." Nanju asked in anger, "You used to come here in uniform." He explained, "In the past I did not have anything good to wear." He looked at Nanju and replied, "Her clothes looked great too. Now I think about it, she said to me to dress like how I did when I went with her, and when going to Honda place." He went in thinking what she meant back then. All of them sat in and were ready for the game. The rules were simple. The last team who survive wins the game. Kiyomi said, "Hey, wait, Nanju-san is still a beginner." The game started. Nanju went close to Mayu. She looked at her and said, "You are surprisingly stacked, Nanju-san." She asked, "Am I?" Before Mayu can continue the conversation, Nanju-san uses her character's special move, making her and Honda knock out. Thanks to her special move, Nanju won the game. Winning a game for the first time, she asked in a cheerful tone, "Did I win?" She looked at Kiyomi and asked for a high five, saying, "I did it." But Kiyomi can't do it. She asked in anger and surprise, "Why are you always acting like a clean freak?" He apologized, and Nanju said it's alright. In curiosity, Mayu was observing them closely. She asked Nanju-san, "Can I call you by your last name?" Nanju said, "Yes, you can." Mayu asked Eri-chan, "Have you two done what newlywed couples do with each other?" Her question threw Nanju and Kiyomi in surprise. They were like, "What did you just say?" By looking at Nanju's expression, Mayu understood they hadn't done it. She said, "It's not your fault. Kiyomi is so hard on cleanliness, right? You don't have to worry about cleanliness once you do it, Kiyomi-kun." He replied, "Don't say that so easily." Mayu grabbed and whispered close to Nanju's ear, "Have you guys kissed? Oh, you haven't? Then you should get rid of his tick soon." After listening to what Mayu said, Kiyomi replied, "You are right and I indeed want to get over this tick and touch her. I'm not worried about what happened in my past, but I can't fully get rid of the thoughts of my past experience." Looking at the situation on hand, he thought, what should I do? After seeing Kiyomi, Mayu replied, "I know what you should do." With blushing cheeks and playing with her hair, she replied, "Flirtatious tone. Women are beings that love to get touched by their loved ones. Like hugging each other without any reservation and holding each other hands to make us happy and feel secure." Listening to what she said, Nanju and Kiyomi blushed, thinking that she is so good at foreplay before we did it. She addressed Nanju and asked, "Isn't it right, Eri-chan?" which surprised her to the seventh heaven. Nanju hesitated and answered in a low tone saying, I mean, if Kiyomi touched me it would truly make me happy." Hearing her words truly touched Kiyomi's heart, making his cheeks blush. Mayu leaned closer and said, "Right, it would be good if you two do it as soon as possible." Making Nanju drown in her fantasy, she says, "Then some other time we can also do foursomes, right?" Nanju said, "I don't think that's a good idea." Mayu leaned back and hugged his hubby Honda, saying, "You got it wrong, Kiyomi. I would love to interact with Eri-chan." Kiyomi's jaw dropped in surprise when Mayu said, "I won't like to touch you directly, Kiyomi." He replied by saying, "Neither do I." He looked at Nanju-san to help him clear the situation, but she was blushing after listening to Mayu and Kiyomi. Kiyomi looked at her and she was speechless about what to say in this situation. Mayu looked at Nanju and asked, "Do you like sweets? I have some with me." She thanked Tawagami-san for her generous offer, and she felt ashamed for talking about this stuff. Kiyomi looked at Nanju-san and thought in his heart she looked like a gal on the outside if you excluded her every time saying "let's do it." Honda asked Kiyomi-kun, "What about another round?" He said, "Sure, why not?" Meanwhile, during their game, Mayu asked Nanju what she likes. She replied, "I like pudding and I hate onions." Kiyomi heard her and thought she liked pudding and hated onions. Mayu and Nanju turned around and looked at Kiyomi asking, "Did you hear what we converse with each other?" He replied, "Yeah, I did." And replied, surprisingly, Nanju seemed to be like a little girl, which is cute. Nanju wasn't prepared for this shock. She couldn't stop herself from blushing in surprise. Looking at Kiyomi, she asked, "Why do you say things like this at odd times?" He asked, "What are you talking about?" Mayu and Honda were looking at and enjoying their lovers' quarrel and said to them, "You two sure are close love birds." Nanju looked at Honda and Mayu asked in wonder, "When did you guys start dating?" Mayu replied, "Both of us started to date each other back in middle school. Our chemistry matched with each other." She asked Nanju, "You went to another school, right? Were you always like this?" In surprise, Nanju looked down and said in a low tone, "During middle school I was plain and simple, and I wasn't good at socializing with others. Due to this, I didn't have any friends back then and I used to play video games with my dad." Mayu laughed and said, "That explains why you are good at this. But it's hard for me to imagine you plain and simple. In fact, you looked more like that gal model Emi-chan." Nanju's eyes lightened up and she said in a cheerful tone, "Really, I'm glad. When I saw her in the magazines I was charmed and wanted to be like her. That's why I dyed my hair and went to her beauty parlors, and I also used her products, and my dream is to work in one of those shops. Not only that, to improve myself I have been practicing on my nails." As Mayu and Nanju chit-chat with each other, Kiyomi became depressed, thinking in his heart that she was even thinking about her amazing future. The night appeared. Kiyomi and Nanju were about to leave, thanking Honda and his girlfriend for the fun. Suddenly Mayu moved and hugged Nanju-san, saying in a dramatic tone, "I'm going to feel lonely if you leave now. Even though the other girls don't like you, right?" Nanju said, "You are right." Mayu replied, "You will feel better if you stay with me. You are completely different from the rumors now. I love you, Eri-chan." Nanju's eyes lightened up. A strange feeling bloomed in her chest when Mayu said, "We are now friends forever." Nanju went deep into her thoughts, thinking, I did say I didn't have any friends, and maybe she was saying those words by her kindness and generosity. Changing the subject, Mayu asked, "Do you guys wanted to go on shopping some other time?" Without thinking twice, Nanju said in a cheerful and energetic tone, "Yes, why not?" Sometime later they left. During the walk, Nanju was happy about the fun she had today, and Kiyomi was glad that she had enjoyed her day. During her walk, Nanju was singing praises of her time with Mayu today. Looking at her, Kiyomi wants to get rid of her clean freak problem, and for me to accomplish that, I want to change, just like she did. He called Nanju, looked at her and asked, "Do you want to hold hands?" Nanju was surprised, thinking, What's suddenly up with him? She smiled looking at him, and replied sure why not. Slowly he touched her hand thinking I want to change, I want to be more normal. Kiyomi slowly held her hand. Touching Nanju's hand he felt soft and warmth of her skin. Holding his hand Nanju naughtily laughed. Kiyomi was confused by her laugh and said with blushing cheeks, the way you are touching is lewd. Kiyomi apologized and Nanju replied, I don't hate this type of touch. It's just how Mayu said, you don't hate it when the person you love is touching you. Rather than sad, it makes you happy. Understanding her feelings, Kiyomi replied, I feel the same way. She asked, do you want to walk like this? Kiyomi said yes and replied, I feel happy to touch your hand. As they walked by holding their hands, Kiyomi asked Nanju, do I look better with my glasses? She asked, why do you ask? He said, because you said I should go with my usual style. Nanju said, you got it wrong, it's because we were going to Honda-kun place. And if you change your style then nobody would recognize the usual you, that's why. With blushing and emphatic tone Nanju said, I want to be the only one who knows that secret version of yours. Nanju became embarrassed after saying that one version of yours is only for me. Kiyomi looked at her in surprise and didn't know what to say or how to express it. The phrase was of only one for me was stuck in Kiyomi's heart. He processed his entire brain power to understand what this phrase meant. In embarrassment, Nanju looked at her and said with her blushing cheeks, you don't understand what I meant to say. Kiyomi adjusted his glasses and replied, I understand what you meant. But now I don't wanna express it embarrassingly. He replied to Nanju, you are surprisingly as cute as a little girl. She said a little bit angrier tone, why are you saying that again?